There are approximately 2 billion mothers in the world. According to estimates, only 10 million of them are entrepreneurs, which makes it half of 1%. Isn't that baffling? And most of these women are self employed by choice to help them fulfill their household obligations and or to pass the time after those responsibilities have been completed. The real number of women entrepreneurs is much lower and therefore not recorded. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Industry Wired Conversations, your front row seat to founder journeys, leadership insights, and the real stories behind how industries run. So, the proportion of women leaders in business and government deserves our attention after all the baffling numbers we just heard. To boost these numbers by any significant amount, it is important that we make the path easier for women and mothers. Joining us today is Zahara Kanchwalla, co founder and CEO at Rite KnowledgeLabs, who has been at the intersection of content, digital, communication, and data led storytelling for around 2 decades to shed more light on today's conversation. Hi, Zahara, a very warm welcome to our podcast today.
Hey, hi Priya. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to have you on our episode today, Zara. And of course, the kind of topic or conversation we'll be discussing today is very much critical. And, it's a conversation between two women that we are having, like it's me and you today. And I think we are going to unpack a lot of insights from your journey, of course, and from your experiences. And I'm sure it will be really much helpful for our women listeners and also for the men out there who can probably make it easier for them to achieve their goals. So let's get started. And with the start, I really want to know more about you, Zahara. How has your journey been till date? And what led you to be at Right Knowledge Labs? What is something that you're trying to solve with it? And anything more that you can share about the organization or your overall journey?
Wonderful. So, my journey actually started somewhere you wouldn't expect, Priya. I trained as a plastics polymers engineer. I then moved to programming, deep in tech, long before any of this. But somewhere in that world, I found myself gravitating towards marketing and communications. And I think that's where, everything really shifted. I realized I always had a flair for communication, and it got me into a techno marketing role. And
Hmm.
in that role, I saw a gap that, has become Right Knowledge Labs as it is today. Working in marketing communications, I noticed that, even big brands had budgets and full agencies for design, but
Hmm.
content was treated as an afterthought. It was handed off to whichever internal subject matter expert had time, not necessarily the skill for it. And back then, the value of content wasn't really recognized. The market was quite nascent. This is, I'm talking about 2015, 16,
Right.
right? So that led to, Right Knowledge Labs, and we are a thought leadership focused content first agency.
Hmm.
We build content solutions for brands. So
Right.
think of it as strategy, design, development, video,
Hmm.
social media, the works. We are now in our 11th year, which honestly still surprises me to say out loud. But yeah, I started it with my founding partner,
Hmm.
Vishwadeep. Once we both saw that same gap clearly, we realized that this was something we wanted to solve. We
Right.
started small. We've been self-funded from day one, and that's still true. No outside capital, and that has been a choice.
Right.
Today, we work with some marquee global multinational customers,
Uh-huh.
and we've stayed small, but we are lean and we're really solid. We have people who've been with us for years, and 11 years in, I can say something proudly that we've built something stable without really taking shortcuts.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what my journey has been like.
Great. Thank you for sharing your journey, Zara. And it's always fascinating to hear, how someone's personal experiences or pivotal decisions, again, with a clear vision, come together to shape not just an individual's career, but an entire organization. And, we're really glad to understand about Right Knowledge Labs and the kind of problem it aims to solve, and, of course, your journey till date. Okay, so with that foundation set in place, so today's conversation, I really want to focus on your entrepreneurial journey, Zara, and some of the lessons that probably you have learned throughout your journey till date. Now, every entrepreneurial journey begins long before, your milestones and achievements. And behind every business is a founder who had to make difficult decisions, embrace uncertainty, and take risks without knowing how things would unfold. Those early
Right.
moments often shape not just the company, but also the leader behind it. So, what were your biggest fears you had when starting your business, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, so many. If I'm honest, I think the biggest one, if I have to think about it, it was stability. Because we were self-funded, there was no safety net. There was no investor check coming in to buy us more time if things went sideways. I remember pitching to a Fortune 500 brand. And, what really got us through was our depth of research and detail. When you're up against much bigger agencies, you do so much more to make your self stand out. So
Hmm.
we submitted pitch notes that were so detailed, so well researched, with ideas so strong that we couldn't simply be ignored, right? And having that has really become our playbook. When you can't compete on size, you compete on the strength of your ideas, and how much harder you're willing to work on that one thing that actually matters.
Hmm.
And somewhere along the way, we started believing more and more in, building something that's entirely, ours.
Hmm.
So with that thought in mind, we've been able to get rid of those fears. And today, with the kind of, customer bank we have, or the client kind of clientele we have, we don't really need to go out of our way to, prove things, because now it's there out there for the world to see. But yeah, that's how it's been.
I agree with you, Zara, and I think it's something every entrepreneur, whether they are just starting out or building a business, can relate to. I feel, and fear, of course, it's often it's something that is actually a part and parcel of your entrepreneurial journey. It's not something that you can keep it aside and then probably focus on your journey and just say no. I didn't have any fears or any skepticism with what you have been doing.
We just learn to take that fear in our stride and just move on. And
Exactly. Yeah.
every time you do that, it just makes your resolve even more stronger.
Very true. And it's very easy to look at successful businesses today and assume, the journey was pretty much straightforward. But stories like yours remind us that every milestone is backed by difficult decisions and self-doubt, but also persistence. And hearing these experiences make entrepreneurship feel much more real and achievable for aspiring founders.
Absolutely.
Building on that, Zahara, behind every successful leader, there's also a personal journey that shapes the way you think, make decisions, and inspire people around them as well. For many women leaders, motherhood adds another dimension to that journey, bringing lessons that extend far beyond family life and into the workplace. It often reshapes your priorities, it strengthens emotional intelligence, and influences how leaders build teams, navigate challenges, and make long term decisions. How has motherhood influenced your approach to leadership or decision making and your overall entrepreneurial journey?
Right. So if I look back, when I had my first child, that's when I looked at taking a break to be able to give some more time, to family. That's when I left my, full-time corporate career. And I started Right Knowledge Labs when my second child, my son, was 3 years old. So it's been a roller coaster ride for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, if I look back, motherhood has made me a sharper individual, not necessarily a softer one. Though I think people expect exactly the opposite.
Right.
When you have two kids and a business, you stop having time for decisions that don't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get ruthless about your priorities because every hour is genuinely accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
I plan my time with a hawk's eye now. Every hour on my calendar has to earn its place. I'm constantly asking myself, whether something actually needs me, whether it's just noise, which is dressing up as urgent, and I need to be able to distinguish that very clearly. And I think that instinct has really come from motherhood, because you learn fast that you cannot be everywhere. You need to be very deliberate about where you actually show up.
Hmm.
Another aspect I think I would say is how I lead the team.
Hmm.
Uh, I think motherhood has made me, understand the value of empathy. I
Hmm.
lead with empathy today because I know exactly what it feels like to be pulled in two different directions at once and still having to deliver. So when someone on my team is having a hard week or juggling something at home, I don't really, treat it as a performance issue. I
Yeah.
understand it because I live some version of that juggle every single day.
Hmm.
And, I think that empathy ensures that I don't become a pushover. If anything, it's made the team more loyal and more honest and upfront with me.
Yeah.
So when they need time off, they will be very honest and upfront, and they won't, try to disguise things or, mince words or sugarcoat words.
Hmm.
So, because they know that I will genuinely listen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think these two things are, what I think has made a difference,
Hmm.
after the motherhood journey. Being more conscious and intentional about how I spend my time, and empathy is definitely an important one. Yeah.
Right. I think both of these aspects are very important and crucial. I think especially, when women enter or, the post 30s, I would say. Though, as women, we tend to be very much, we're occupied with so much stuff around us that decluttering becomes a very important task for us. And like you mentioned, post motherhood, that is something you learned. I wouldn't say learned, but that came naturally to you, and you were able to do that. You were able to balance that empathy again with accountability and staying resilient through uncertain times and prioritizing what truly matters. I think those often become even more pronounced throughout that journey. I also believe it challenges the conventional notion that personal and professional growth happen separately, because I think in reality that they often strengthen each other. And with what you said, I think yes, both actually complement each other. Great. Building on that thought, Zahara, now when we talk about women, I think women are a force to be reckoned with in the business world. They run billion-dollar companies and are entrepreneurs and innovators. But still, why are women still subject to many of the same old stereotypes that probably our mothers and grandmothers faced decades ago? So, coming back to this question and asking you that, what are some of the biggest misconceptions or biases you have encountered as a woman entrepreneur, and how did you navigate them?
Yeah, I so agree with you, Priya. I think there are, in spite of so much change and evolution, we still have so many biases and stereotypes that we continue to face. I wouldn't say it's, I mean, I would say that there is definitely a positive change, but there is a lot more to be done for sure. I can give you an example. I feel, there is this assumption, sometimes said out loud, sometimes not, that
Hmm.
a woman-led agency is, somehow smaller league, or we're not serious, or we're just an also ran.
Hmm.
That's something people just assume, and then once they dig deeper and they really, see things and they see our work speak for itself, that's when, that perception changes.
Hmm.
There are perceptions generally about, what women bring to the table. I once had a prospective client ask my male colleague the technical questions and turn to me only for the softer ones. And the irony is, our actual responses came out exactly opposite of what they expected,
Yeah.
because he was the one talking through culture and relationship, and I was the one talking them through the technical architecture and delivery details. So
Yeah.
it said a lot more about their assumptions than it did about, either of us.
Hmm.
There was another client who would just not look at me in the eye through an entire meeting.
Oh God.
He addressed everything to my colleague, to the room, anywhere but at me. It
Hmm.
was like speaking to a wall. And I was leading the pitch, sitting right there, and I might as well not have been in the room at all. But
Hmm.
I think we navigated it. I'll be honest, it was not something triumphant, but
Hmm.
just to keep letting the work speak.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
today, 11 years of marquee global clients does more to correct an assumption than any argument I can make in the moment.
Agreed.
But,
Yeah.
I've also stopped over explaining myself in those rooms.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Zara, because somewhere, as a part of my journey as well, I have faced such biases or misconceptions, considering that I'm a woman. And like you mentioned earlier, that most of the people out, when they see a woman founder, so they assume that probably they're just doing that as a hobby, or they're doing that just to, spend that time or ensure that they're making something effective out of their time. But I think they tend to forget that we can also be passionate about something and we can also be entrepreneurs. Yet again, I agree with you that sometimes your work, your actions again speak louder than your words. So your work speaks for itself, and that's the best way that probably you can tackle these challenges and biases. And yeah, and I think conversations like these, they all challenge the long held assumptions about leadership and women entrepreneurship. Great. So, Zara, you earlier mentioned that with regards to Right Knowledge Labs, it's a self-invested company, it's a self-built company with no capital outsourced or no investors investing in the company. My next question is related to somewhere around gaining investments. Do you believe that women entrepreneurs still face unique barriers when it comes to raising capital or accessing growth opportunities? And if it's so, what do you think should be changed in the ecosystem?
Yes, though I'd say the story is shifting. I
Mm.
think for years the data has said that, women founded startups were getting somewhere around 2% of global VC funding, even though the same research kept showing that women led and diverse teams often delivered better returns. Some reports had 35% higher ROI. I think that gap alone tells you it was never really about performance, it was about who gets believed, right?
Yeah.
Something is changing. In the US, if you see, female founded startups actually captured about a quarter of total VC deal value in 2025. It was a
Mm.
first for the industry. And if we look at India, women led startups pulled in a record funding in the first half of this year, especially in fintech, health tech, and sustainability.
Right.
So I see investor confidence is starting to catch up with numbers that were always there.
Mm.
But I don't want to overstate that. I think the overall share for women only founding teams is still in the low single digits in most markets.
Mm.
And mixed gender teams still raise far more easily than all women teams. So the barriers are real. We chose to self fund by design,
Mm.
but we understand how hard it can be to raise, on the same terms as everyone else.
Yeah.
I think what needs to change is structural. More women and diverse voices need to be on the investing side of the table, not just pitching from across it.
Right.
And founder networks, they matter here too.
Mm-hmm.
Which doors are actually open makes a real difference in where you spend your energy.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's about ensuring that the shift that's happening should not stall out as a 1 year headline,
Yeah.
and the trend should keep moving in the right way.
True, I agree with you, Zara, and I think it's encouraging to see progress being made, definitely. But it's equally clear that there is still work to be done in creating a more equitable entrepreneurial ecosystem. And it's just the access to capital that we just discussed, but they really have to, have to face challenges probably around visibility or gaining that right mentor networks, and even unconscious biases, like factors that can significantly influence the trajectory of a business. I think ultimately fostering an inclusive entrepreneurship isn't just about creating fair opportunities. It's again, like you mentioned, we need more diverse thinking and a more sustainable growth for the broader economy.
Absolutely.
Right. Since we discussed now about, network opportunities or having that network of VC investors. So I also believe that building and scaling a business is rarely a solo journey. You have access to capital maybe, or the right tech stack, the market is right. Many founders often emphasize that the right guidance and support system can be just as transformative. And for women entrepreneurs in particular, having access to mentors or experienced founders and strong peer communities can help them navigate the challenges more effectively with much more confidence, and they can make those critical business decisions without any skepticism or that fear. how important are, these founder communities or mentorship and peer networks in helping women entrepreneurs succeed? I mean, in your entire journey, did you face that, okay, probably I need the right guidance or a support system? Did you miss any of that, or you did have? What are your perspectives on this?
Yeah, if you ask me how important, I would say enormously important.
Hmm.
And honestly, I think women tend to network a lot lesser than, men tend to. Women also are not very intentional about seeking mentorship opportunities. And even if I look at it, I think I underestimated this in our early years as well.
Hmm.
I just thought if I put my head down and did great work, that would be enough.
Hmm.
It's necessary, yes, but I don't think it's sufficient.
Hmm.
Having a network of founders changes how fast you make decisions, because you have people who've already been through that exact problem that you're staring at.
Hmm.
So there's that something about talking to another founder or another woman founder who's also juggling a team and a family. So you
Hmm.
don't have to explain the backstory, they just get it and you get straight to the real conversation.
True.
So I think having a network where, whether it's formal or, as a community, or it's informal and you have, people within your immediate ecosystem who can guide you that way is great.
Hmm.
Those rooms I think have saved me time. They've saved me, from some mistakes,
Hmm.
and they've honestly saved me from feeling alone in it, which
Yeah.
is feeling which is underrated as a founder,
Hmm.
because it's a lonelier, role than most people
True.
think.
True. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really insightful perspective, Zara, because I feel that sometimes some aspects of your journey are also probably shaped by the people around you. So having mentors who have navigated similar challenges, or peers, they can offer you that honest feedback, and that community building can foster more collaboration, and that can make a tremendous difference, especially during the moments of your uncertainty and that loneliness, just like you mentioned. And I think these networks, having that proper networking in place, can also bridge the gaps, accessing the opportunities or industry connections, and growing your business and scaling your business. So I think that's very much important, and it raises an interesting question also about how we can make these networks more accessible and impactful for women founders across the different stages of their entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I think overall women need to support women a lot more.
True.
I think men, tend to generally have that brotherhood, if I may use that term,
Yeah.
amongst themselves.
Right.
Women somehow shy away from supporting each other and lifting each other up. So that's something, we should definitely do more of.
True, true. I think that's very much needed, and hopefully, in the near future, probably we'd be able to see much more improvements in the current ecosystem, and more such healthier and livelier conversations around womanhood and motherhood. Moving ahead, Zahara, I think now we're almost at the end of our conversation today, and I really want to know, about your personal journey. That what are some of the challenges that you faced looking back in your journey, and what is something that you learned about yourself when dealing with those challenges?
Yeah, I think personally, I think I've been blessed. I've had a very good family ecosystem that has supported me, throughout the journey. So, on a personal level, I think I enjoyed great support, which enabled me to, dedicate so much time to the business and, juggle things at home. But having that strong support system is very, very important. So personally, I would say yes, not, didn't face many challenges there.
Hmm.
But I think, in the business, I would say scaling the team without losing what made us good in the first place. I
Hmm.
think that period, was very important, because, as founders, we want to be very hands-on. We bring a certain depth which clients want. But
Hmm.
as you scale and grow the team, how are you able to have your team translate, the same value that the seniors in the team bring in,
Hmm.
is something that is important. And I think that period, tested things. What got us through really was, going back to the basics.
Hmm.
Who are we for? What do we do better than anyone else? And I think what it just taught me about myself, that I'm more resilient than my instincts tell me in the moment. So,
Mm,
in the middle of a hard stretch, it always feels like it might be the thing that breaks you,
mm,
but it usually is the thing that makes you clearer in your thinking.
right.
Right. So I think through that phase, I've come out with a much sharper sense of, who we are, what is the value that we are really, delivering to clients.
Mm,
And once you have that clarity, then, things become a lot simpler, because then you are able to make those choices that, we'd rather do it this way than do it that way. Right.
mm,
So I think, those tough times give you that clarity, and then,
mm.
you can make things a lot from there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that so openly, Zara. And the reason, I asked this question was because, when people look at leaders like you, so they usually see your achievements and your milestones, but they rarely, understand or know about your setbacks or the tough decisions that, shaped those accomplishments behind the scenes. When people listen to this episode, I really want them to know that, the journey is always filled with a lot of challenges, and it's not as easy as it is said. And I think those experience often become the foundation of a stronger leadership and a clearer sense of purpose.
Yeah, I think one thing I can add there is, women need to come to terms with the fact that the balance will, always be tilted. You'll never find that equilibrium. There will be times when, your demands at home need you. There will be times when you will sacrifice those, times that you need to spend at home to be able to attend to something critical at work. So
Mm,
it's okay to let that balance keep shifting. The more you try to bring it to a balance, the more you struggle. But
mm,
accepting the fact that yes, it's okay to let this be down today, and give more priority to
yeah.
the other thing. Once you accept that, then things are much more fluid, and then it all just works out in the end.
I agree with you, Zahra, and I think that's a very important skill that as women we need to learn. But again, I think every person has its own different journey. So there are people who might learn that before probably starting up their own company or probably after motherhood. But I think it's time that teaches you this important skill, and yes, I think that's very important while dealing not just your professional life, I would say, but it's really helpful in your personal life as well.
Absolutely. I cannot just, tell you how much I have learned in these
Yeah.
11 years and
Mm.
across diverse experiences. And,
Yeah.
nothing I think can teach you more than an entrepreneurship journey.
True, true. I agree with you. And so we are almost at the end of a conversation. And, of course, I have not experienced myself as becoming a mother, but I always have this, romanticized vision of what the first year would be like. I'm thinking of a reality where, I would run my business and do freelance work while my baby is simply, sleeping and breastfeeding. But when I have this conversation with a lot of my friends who have gone through the motherhood, and, they are also juggling their personal and professional life. So they said they always say that no, that's not how the reality is, Priya. So turns out that caring for a newborn is a full-time job that leaves little room for anything else. So what would you say to women, especially mothers, who really want to start a business but hesitate because of their family responsibilities?
Yeah, very good question. I think I'd say the guilt of, I don't have time, that guilt is very real,
Mm,
but it's usually pointed at the wrong target. You don't need more time, than anyone else. You just need to be ruthless about what deserves your time.
mm,
And I think that's a skill motherhood just gives you, whether
mm,
you notice it or not.
mm,
Like I said, I started when my second child was 3,
mm,
and I will not pretend that it was seamless and it was smooth. It definitely wasn't.
mm,
There were nights when I felt like I was failing at both the things, at parenting and at entrepreneurship.
right.
But 11 years in, I think standing stable, standing strong with a team and clients that we are genuinely proud of.
Mm,
I think it's proof that it's not a choice between the two.
yeah.
So my honest advice would be, that start smaller than feels impressive.
Mm,
Build in a way that fits the life you want and
mm,
you have,
mm,
not the founder story you think you're supposed to have.
hmm.
So you don't definitely need to have it all figured out before you begin. You just need to begin.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zahra. I think that was a powerful end to our conversation today. And your journey is a reminder that entrepreneurship isn't just about building successful businesses, it's more about resilience, continuous learning, and having the courage to pursue a vision despite all your uncertainties and challenges. For many women, and especially mothers, balancing multiple responsibilities, stories like yours demonstrate that leadership isn't defined by following a conventional path, but by embracing challenges with determination and purpose. Thank you so much, Zara, for sharing your experiences so candidly and for offering valuable lessons that I'm sure will resonate with aspiring entrepreneurs and business leaders alike.
Yeah, thank Priya for having me. I think it was nice to reflect back on, certain things which we don't often think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Zahra. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation around women entrepreneurship, and especially for mothers who really want to start something new but are still figuring out or struggling to understand and decide when to start. I hope this conversation will probably give you more clarity of purpose, and hopefully, you will take that step at the earliest. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Thank you so much.